It's Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves here. The toll-free number tonight is 855-450-FREE. You can bring up anything that you want. That is the point here of the program, and welcome to it. You can join us on our Discord server as well, where we have the Discord call-in line rooms. That means you'll sound way better than you would if you called in on just the regular old phone. So would definitely prefer if you can use the Discord lines. Please get on over to discord.lrn.fm. I know that Johnson is on his way in here. We also are joined by a special guest here tonight with not your first time on Free Talk Live. Welcome, Etienne.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to try the whole name here. Etienne de la Boetie?
Squared.
Can you give our listeners a history on that name?
Yeah, so the original Etienne de la Boetie was a French political philosopher. He wrote in the 16th century, and he was really the first to expose the tools and the techniques that rulers use to engender not just obedience, but fealty and adoration. He was a little bit like Machiavelli, but Machiavelli was like, hire me and I'll show you how to run these slaves. And Boetie was kind of blowing the whistle and saying, hey, this is a program. They're using these techniques. They're unethically manipulative. And so I trying to continue his work, and I use the square to denote the fact I'm not the original. And also, if you put Boetie squared number 2 into a search engine, it will differentiate me instead of being lost with the original Boetie stuff. And
how long ago was the original around? When
he wrote around 1530s.
Oh,
so
wow.
He died.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny. So if you take a look at his writings, it's almost like he was writing today because they're still using exact same techniques. He also said that men are not so much enslaved as they enslave themselves.
Sure.
And then soon as they become enslaved, they really promptly forget about liberty and freedom, and almost has to be roused to do it. And he said that there are always a few who will not bow. And I dedicate my book to those few that see through the propaganda and are trying to warn the population and do something about it, because I think the difference between being enslaved and being a slave is, are you resisting?
And I got to say that a lot of these people who do see through the propaganda and who get it are moving here to New Hampshire, and you've done that too recently.
I am. I'm a new mover to New Hampshire. Absolutely.
So congratulations.
Thank you, man. I like it here, and everybody's been super cool. It's been
it's not wintertime yet.
Yes.
You came from the South, right?
I did. I'm a native Texan that's been living in Northern Virginia outside of the belly of the beast.
Well, Northern Virginia can get a little bit of snow, right?
Oh, yeah, we get blizzards. Oh, yeah, we get blizzards. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
What's the highest that you've seen snow pile up in
I've seen
Northern Virginia?
3 feet.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah. And I see it. You see it every 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
So it's regular.
See, I only lived in the real South. I lived in Florida.
That's where I'm headed next.
26 years of my life.
That's where I'm headed next.
It's very different here. I love it. I'm so glad to be here in New Hampshire, where we've got more liberty-minded people here than anywhere else, I think, like concentration-wise, in the entire world.
And yeah, absolutely.
It makes such a big difference when you can actually hang out with people who agree with you and who understand what freedom really means. And not only just the people that have migrated here to New Hampshire, but a lot of the natives, too. I mean, there's a reason why it's called the Live Free or Die state, because the native population here, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, they still, they may not have, all the details ironed out, but at a very visceral or gut, level, they understand what it means to be free. And they don't like the government telling them what to do. And I just run into more and more of these New Hampshire natives. It's just reinforces the fact that, yes, this was the right place to choose, that this is the right place. Just got back, actually. We arrived here at the studio at about the same time tonight. You're in this huge 36-foot RV. I just pulled in, having returned from a polling location today, where one of our co-hosts who used to be known as Rich Paul, is now called Nobody. He legally changed his name.
I know Nobody.
Probate court, yeah.
Yep.
And he filed for mayor here in Keene. So for the first time, the people of this area have the ability to actually vote for Nobody on the primary ballot. Now, we're not expecting that he's going to make it through the primary. It's a 3-candidate primary, and only the top 2 vote getters are going to make it through to the general election. Anything could happen, but given that it's a municipal primary, you got to be kind of realistic. It's usually, like the hardcore politicos that come out, the people that, they already know who the candidates are. At a municipal primary, you're not likely to get sort of the clueless voter who doesn't really know who's on the ballot. You probably are getting the people who are already supporters of one or the other 2 main candidates.
You know who else you get? You get whoever the incumbents' toadies are.
Their toadies? Yeah, exactly. All their fanatics.
Well, not just the fanatics, but the office holders, right? And so, I know that that's the case. I know that that's the case in kind of bigger cities. I don't know the extent of what they have a civil service where they're able to award jobs and patronage and things like that. But
there's not a whole lot of that in a smaller town, but obviously it still goes on to some extent.
Right.
So just Johnson joining us here in the studio. Welcome back, or welcome to it. We were just talking about the Keene municipal primary that is going on as well, not as we speak. The polls just closed 12 minutes ago, but we should get some results later on here tonight. I figure if he can do better than 1 or 2%, he's still doing better than most libertarians, pretty much anywhere in the country. And just today, the story this morning finally hit mainstream media. So the Boston Globe picked up the Nobody for Mayor campaign story. And then, of course, once one major mainstream press organization picks up a story, then it's almost inevitable, especially if it's one with a kind of viral potential like this. I mean, Nobody runs for mayor. That's a great headline, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
it's clickbait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So already WBZ, which is a news station in Boston, picked it up, and that's a Clear Channel, or what was Clear Channel, now known as iHeartMedia. And so KFI, which is their massive station in Los Angeles, they ran a story. Now, I don't know if they ran it on the air. It's appearing on their website, so it may just be web only. But either way, it's nice to see it kind of spreading out from there. New York Post picked it up, so it's always nice to see a little bit of attention given to the things that we do here in this tiny little town, this miniature city of Keene, New Hampshire. So we'll, of course, take your phone calls about whatever's on your mind. The toll-free number here tonight is 855-450-FREE. Speaking of city politics, ridiculous politics, there's an update in the Statesville, North Carolina conflict over the gigantic American flag. I don't think you were on the show, Johnson, when we covered this originally. No. But the Statesville, North Carolina City Council has been in a fight with an RV park owner. And I guess this RV owner owns a ton of
I know there's one of those flags on the way driving to Nashua. There's a place that has one of those huge flags.
I don't know if it's the same chain of RV parks, or not parks. Park's not the right word. Dealers, RV dealers. These guys will sell you an RV. And you're driving an RV. I don't know if it came from this place, Etienne, but these guys have this is the top dealer for RVs in the United States. They're huge. They've got 200 dealerships. And they're sort of known for having these massive American flags flying. Now, look, I don't get any excitement over seeing an American flag flying.
I get sadness. It just means somebody's been chumped by this artificial religion of statism, and
you're going to be
the bigger the flag, the harder they've been chumped.
Yeah, you're going to be disgusted by this story, right? Because not only do you have the fact that this guy is a huge flag waver, but you also have, it's hard to really know who's the most despicable character in this story, because this guy's trying to run a business. He's pandering to, the American flag waving public. And the city council is saying, your flag's too big. You can't be having a flag that big here in Statesville. Well, there's been a resolution to this particular story. So I'll give you some more of the backstory and what happened originally.
So I wonder, with that, you can't have a flag that big. I mean, where does that lie on the free speech scale here?
We'll get into it coming up here in moments. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We've got the Discord call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. And, of course, you're welcome to join us here and bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. Free Talk Live is brought to you by local.bitcoin.com. That is where you can go to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash with dozens of payment methods. And you can do it globally. This is finally a trading platform that actually respects your privacy, meaning that there's actually no identification requirements in order to sign up for the site. And that really sets local.bitcoin.com apart from their competition. Their competitors want to know who you are, where you're from. They want to see your ID. Local.bitcoin.com doesn't require any of that, and that's because they don't have custody of your funds at any point. All of the trading goes on through what they call smart contracts on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. So go and learn more and get started at local.bitcoin.com. And also, an additional privacy measure is that the communications between buyers and sellers there on the site are encrypted. So nobody gets to read the conversation between you and your buyer and or seller unless you want to bring a third party in. Let's say you know something goes wrong. You got a dispute. You need to bring in an administrator. Well, you can give that person permission to read, but you get to decide who gets to read the conversation because you got encryption there. Very cool stuff. Go to local.bitcoin.com. If you're new to Bitcoin, just go to bitcoin.com. Get started there. They got a cool introduction course that you can go through that's totally free for you. All right, so in our studio tonight, I'm Ian.
I'm Johnson.
I'm Etienne de la Boetie.
And Etienne, where can people go to, I guess at this point, pre-order the next run of your book? Because you said you sold out of the last one.
We did. So I was just a speaker at Anarchadelphia, where it was
right on.
the
I heard it
best-selling.
was great, by the way.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And the thing I was most excited about is, these Liberty events. It was a first-year event. It had almost as many folks as at the first Anarchapulco, and they're popping up everywhere. And so I really think that voluntarism is the fastest growing, political movement, quote-unquote political movement in the United States.
So the website?
Oh, if you want to understand our slavery, you have to go to understandingourslavery.com.
I have 2 editions of the book, and I think they're fantastic. They're like a wonderful coffee table, I think, kind of book to get conversations started with people.
Well, the part of the reason is I use all the visualizations, I use the historical images, and so most people are visual learners. And it's been designed to be effective with visual learners because my ultimate goal is widespread distribution to expose how intergenerational organized crime runs the government and the media. And if you want anybody to engage with a book, number one, if you make it kind of like a picture book, you expand the number of people that will engage with any book from kind of 10, 15% to 30, 40 plus. And so it's fascinating and interesting kind of by design. Yeah,
you can tell a lot of thought went into it. So again, understandingourslavery.com for more from Etienne. But let's get into this story here about Statesville, North Carolina, where actually we used to be on the air, but it was one of the few radio stations that's actually taken us off the air over the years. We haven't had, we lose stations usually because they change formats or something, right? Like they don't specifically target Free Talk Live to remove us. It's like the format didn't work, so they've flipped to music or something like that. So we've lost our share of stations. We do continue to grow. We now actually have over 200 radio stations that carry the show over a week's time. They're not all on right now, but over 1 week, it's over 200. And so Statesville was one of the few stations, WSIC there, that actually cut us off because I feel like I'd have to pull up the exact reason, but somebody was offended. I think it was like their general manager.
You just need to find if there's a Freedomsville, North Carolina. Get on there.
There might be. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, Freedomsville is not Statesville because this place is one of the biggest. I mean, it's called Statesville. I mean, it's got to be a very state-oriented place. And in this case, they're in a fight with the owner of Gander RV parent company Camping World concerning a gigantic American flag that flies over an RV dealership there in town. This has been going on. We talked about it earlier this summer on Free Talk Live, where it's just a knockdown, drag-out political fight between these people. and they finally have come to an agreement in a closed session, according to the Record Landmark at Statesville.com. This is a local newspaper in the area, and announced by, and this is an amazing name for a mayor, Kosti Kutta, C-O-S-T-I, Kosti, K-U-T-T-E-H. It almost sounds like cost cutter, right?
Well, that's a horrible name for a mayor, because I don't know any mayors that are interested in cutting costs.
Well, that's just it. This person is obviously not interested in that either. But the discussions have been in the works for months. What they came to agree is that Camping World will pay $14,350 in fines to the city, and about $2,000 in court fees, according to Kutta. The company will then apply for the ordinance for the flag size to be expanded in its zoning district. The council has agreed to approve the new ordinance. So they're literally allowing this guy to buy his new ordinance. Mm-hmm. He's going to pay them over $10,000, and they're going to write a new ordinance to grandfather in or to expand the mass, this whatever the ordinance says as far as the maximum size of the flag. But to go back a little bit, because I don't think
wait. Because I think statism is a religion.
Yeah.
And this smells a lot like the selling of indulgences.
It sure does. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And both sides in this, neither of these sides are actually freedom fighters. None of these people are oriented towards freedom. If you just glanced at the story before, and both of you are new to it, and I'm sure many of our audience are as well, but if you just looked at the story at a glance, you'd think, oh, well, that RV park guy should be able to, fly whatever flag that he wants, and he should. It's his RV park. If he wants to fly a humongous flag over it, he should be able to. But if that was where the story ended, then yeah, the RV guy would be the victim in this case. But he is so steeped in his belief in the state, he's almost as bad as the city council. And I wish that I had the original story here to read some of the quotes from this guy, but he wasn't telling the city council, screw your ordinance, I'm going to fly whatever size flag I want, screw you, whatever you want, I don't care. He was basically saying, he said, I will pay whatever it costs. So he was more than willing to pay whatever fines the city came up with. He wanted to fight them over this, but part of his idea about the fight would be to completely obey the system. Even though he was trying to challenge the system, he was at the same time completely obedient to it by speaking publicly and just embracing whatever. He just said, bring whatever fines you want, I'll pay them, because he's that wealthy. The dude owns 200 RV parks. I mean, think about the money that this guy has. What's your typical RV cost? $200,000, $300,000, $400,000? So this guy has enough money to where $5,000 a day fines weren't going to faze him. And at this point, they've come to an agreement: $14,350 in fines, and he gets to keep his flag. The 40 by 80 foot flag. Toll-free number 855-450-FREE if you want to join us here. Coming up, should the Libertarians get rid of the non-aggression principle? Johnson's got that.
Do you have a crypto wealth advisor or coach? If so, has your cryptocurrency advisor been investing in technology stocks for over 20 years? Have they left the corporate world and retired? Or are they still trying to make a weekly paycheck? Have they produced six-figure results for their customers in the past 30 days? And very importantly, are they a member of the Digital Currency Council? Seth Maniscalco is the founder of Crypto Wealth Coach and CryptoWealthCoach.com. Seth invested in his first Roth IRA at 19 years old while living abroad, and has been investing in Wall Street and technology for over 20 years with experience in all the money markets. By comparison, so many of these so-called crypto gurus have barely been alive for 20 years. Seth has not only experienced personal success from his own investments in crypto, he has also helped his clients earn 6- and 7-figure incomes, including helping investors make over $750,000 in EOS in 90 days and 1,225% in only 5.5 months with Chainlink. Seth has help for the small do-it-yourself guy on up to crypto whales. Increase your wealth. Visit CryptoWealthCoach.com.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. You can take control of the airwaves, and you can bring up whatever you want. And you know what? If you want to wave a flag, wave whatever flag that you want. I think you should have that freedom, and it should be able to be as big as you want it to be, as long as it's your property. If it's your flag on your property, then really it's nobody else's business. But the city of Statesville, North Carolina, thinks it is their business. Sorry, Johnson. Let me turn your mic on. That would help.
Some folks were born made to wave the flag.
Indeed. And so the owner of RV World there in Statesville, he has agreed to pay $14,000 to the Statesville City Council, and they have agreed in reciprocal to expand the flag ordinance to allow him to legally have a gigantic flag. So there's no freedom here.
If it may please the crown.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. That's all it was. It was just him coming to negotiate with these bureaucrats, with these politicians. They've got men with guns who are willing to use them in order to enforce their will, but they didn't have to, because he was willing to just do what they said to some extent. I mean, he had a bunch of money, so they knew they could get some money out of him, and he managed to get what he wanted out of them, and nobody got more freedom, because if you want to have a flag in Statesville, you still have to beg for permission. And, I mean, if people can't just see on its face how sick that is, that you have to ask somebody else's permission to do what it is that you want to do with what you think is your own property, which, of course, we all know it's not. As long as you're paying property tax, that's pretty much proof that you don't own it.
There's a reason they don't teach ethics or morality or logic in the mandatory government school system.
There was a course called ethics, I think. I don't know if they taught any decent, information in that course, but they had one titled ethics.
Did you take it?
I don't remember. It's been so long. I think it was in college, but that was also a government college, so it was like a community college. So if you want to join us, you are welcome to do that. We're going to get into, Johnson, you had an interesting sounding story here tonight about the non-aggression principle. Now, this is the sort of bedrock principle that is the foundation of essentially all of libertarianism. The idea being that if you use violence, aggressive violence, that's not okay. That right. In order to do things in life, you should be using persuasion rather than the threat of force. That you should persuade your neighbors to buy the thing you want them to buy or support the cause that you think that they should support. That the use of the threat of violence is inappropriate. It's not neighborly. It's not good. It's not something that we should do to one another. And for the most part, people don't. For the most part, people in their day-to-day life abide by this principle, meaning that the average neighbor does not go and put a gun in his neighbor's face and says, mow your lawn.
Right.
The average person in a business is not threatening their competitors with violence in order to get them to go out of business. They just have to outcompete them. They just have to provide a better product and a better service. But,
so I've noticed online too, particularly, it seems like there has been this growing contingent of of Republicans who think it's cool to call themselves libertarians, who have decided that they're going to be part of the libertarian movement, I guess, and question this non-aggression principle. And not only that, I mean, and I guess there are also a lot of those people, those same people who are part of the alt-right, right? So, if there's a Venn diagram of libertarianism, these fake libertarians who are like, they're libertarians, or, one thing about libertarians is there's a purity test, and, everyone's trying to talk down and say you're not libertarian enough, and it doesn't matter, right? These are those people. There's a ton of these people, and I've found that the attacks on the non-aggression principle have become, more and more frequent. So I liked this piece because I feel like it put those attacks together in a really cogent way to be disassembled.
Okay.
One at a time. So I figured this is a great night. It's good to have your Etienne as well, so that we can just dismantle these stupid attacks.
Okay, good, because I don't even know what the attacks are. So I'm coming.
You've heard them over and over again, but
maybe
piecemeal. So let's put them all together and just take them apart, right? So, okay, so this article is from Matt Zwolinski, and it's being written for libertarianism.org.
Okay, so the guy writing this, is he in favor of getting rid of the non-aggression principle?
Correct.
Okay.
And he considers himself a ardent libertarian who is against the non-aggression principle.
Yeah, I mean, for most people, for most libertarians,
and there are a lot of libertarians that say this, like these are like the Liberty Hangout type people.
I've heard about this organization. This is more like a conservative-leaning group.
Exactly. There's a lot of
smells of controlled opposition.
Yeah, so there's a lot of this controlled opposition that has been.
Well, right.
Seems like
they've got a website
growing.
called libertarianism.org. I mean, I mean that's a great URL.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound particularly libertarian because look, and as we're going to get into in detail here, I imagine if you reject the non-aggression principle, I'm sorry, you don't qualify as a libertarian. You might have some libertarian views on things, and in which case I'll be happy to work with you. Like if you agree with libertarians on ending the war on drugs, but yet you still support going to war overseas, I will work with you to help end the war on drugs, and I'll oppose you when it comes to going to war overseas. These people don't understand what libertarianism is, or they do understand it, and as you suggest, Etienne, that it is a specific attempt to undermine it.
I think, as we'll see, this is very, very much a religious type argument. And I've heard these same styles of arguments from some people who put Christianity over freedom as well. I've heard those people make similar types of arguments in the past. So, all
right,
let's continue on here. So, a stringent application of the non-aggression principle has morally unacceptable implications. Many libertarians believe that the whole of their political philosophy can be summed up in a single, simple principle. This principle, the non-aggression principle, or non-aggression axiom, hereafter we'll refer to this as the NAP, holds that aggression against the person or property of others is always wrong, where aggression is defined narrowly in the terms of the use or threat of physical violence. From this principle, many libertarians believe the rest of libertarianism can be deduced as a matter of mere logic. What is the proper libertarian stance on minimum wage laws? Aggression and therefore wrong. What about anti-discrimination laws? Aggression and therefore wrong. Public schools? Same answer. Public roads? Same answer. The libertarian armed with the NAP has little need for the close study of history, sociology, or empirical economics.
That's what's great about it. I can do a whole radio show without having to know anything about any of these issues. I don't need to know all the facts and statistics that people argue endlessly over because, of course, all these things can be manipulated based on, how you ask the questions in the poll or whatever. All I need to know is, are you threatening violence against me or my neighbors? In which case, no, it's not okay. Whatever it is you have planned, it's not okay.
Right. So it goes on to say, with a little logic and a lot of faith in this basic axiom of morality, virtually any political problem can be neatly solved from the armchair. On its face, the NAP's prohibition of aggression falls nicely in line with common sense. After all, who doesn't think that it's wrong to steal someone else's property, to club someone?
Well, the government goons.
Yeah.
They think it's okay.
To club some innocent person over the head or to force others to labor for one's own private benefit. And if it's wrong for us to do these things as individuals, why should it be any less wrong for us to do it as a group, as a club, a gang, or a state?
To his credit, he at the very least does understand these arguments, right? Like he gets the other side.
So to finish this...
Because it is wrong to do those things no matter how many... people, and that's one of those things that you can use to explain to somebody that is still stuck within the status paradigm is like they still think it's okay to vote and that it's okay that voting somehow makes all this fine.
Right.
It's like, well, if I get a bunch of my neighbors together and that we vote that we want to paint your house a different color or burn it to the ground, does that make it okay?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. No matter how many of my neighbors I manage to recruit in, even if it's 99% of everybody and you're the 1% that says no, leave me alone. 855-450 free. We'll dig in further. It is Free Talk Live. You can take control of the airwaves here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We do have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. You can sound almost like you're sitting here in the studio with us. Just call in on Discord over at discord.lrn.fm. That is also our chat server. People are in there 24 hours a day. It's a little slower in the overnights, but there's usually people there. Go to discord.lrn.fm and you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners there. Plus, there's the brand new cryptocurrency tipping bot that is in the server. And I will give my disclaimer. We don't know who programmed this bot. It could be a gigantic exit scam. But it sure is fun to tip cryptocurrency to other people on the server. So if somebody is on the air that you hear them say something you like, maybe Johnson says something that you appreciated, he's in there as Tempest Infernus. So you can just send him some Have you gotten some tips?
I've gotten some from you.
Okay. I do just go in there and just kind of randomly hand out tips. It's fun. You can do like random, choose, like a random number of people.
If anyone else has tipped me and I just haven't noticed, it's just because I'm not on Discord that much, so I don't want to discount.
I see.
If I have gotten
somebody
tips
just
from other
got
people.
insulted, right?
Yeah, I don't want to, I hope I didn't insult anybody. I hope I haven't. I hope I'm right that I've only gotten this from you.
But get on in there over at discord.lrn.fm. Now, you may have heard of KrisAnne Hall. She's a former Florida attorney and former prosecutor who was fired after teaching about the Constitution. Even though she was ordered not to by her boss, State Attorney Skip Jarvis, she didn't stop and instead stood up for freedom over a paycheck. And you can watch the replay of the webinar that we actually hosted with KrisAnne Hall for free at lfu.freetalklive.com. LFU stands for Liberty First University. That's lfu.freetalklive.com. KrisAnne is a disabled veteran of the U.S. Army, a Russian linguist, mother, and a patriot, and she now travels the country teaching the Constitution and the history that give us our founding documents. Now, KrisAnne Hall doesn't just teach the Constitution, she lays the foundations that show how reliable and relevant these founding documents are today. And she presents the genealogy of the Constitution, the 700-year history, and 5 foundational documents that are the very roots of American liberty. Her belief is you can't properly understand or interpret the Constitution without a firm grasp of its very foundation. If you can go learn more about Liberty First University and watch the free webinar on demand by going to lfu.freetalklive.com. Don't wait until it's too late to get this webinar for free. You can watch it now at lfu.freetalklive.com. So, Johnson, you were sharing with us a story from a website claiming to be libertarianism.org. Mm-hmm. This guy is about to get into, the author of this story is about to get into reasons why he is going to say the non-aggression principle should be excised from the libertarian movement. And
I have heard this argument, or arguments that this guy brings up, lots of them in various different forms, across a lot of different platforms and social media, where people who are at least claiming to be interested in liberty and libertarianism are making these arguments. So I feel like there is definitely something to these, at least in that people who are on that journey from, libertarian anarchist, which everybody inevitably will get there. It's probably
not
just
everybody.
Take
Some people turned around.
Well, that's true, but they might eventually realize the fallacy of their ways. I guess.
Some people, Christopher Cantwell comes to mind.
Well, that's who was in my mind as well.
Another one, Amanda Bolden. She was a free stater who moved here as a so-called anarchist and then became a socialist. So, and she's not, and these aren't the only ones. There are other examples of people who purportedly have come to embrace and understand the non-aggression principle and then have completely rejected it. I remember Will May. He was another mover here to the Keene area years ago.
He was never. Well, that's a joke. I mean, he was never, even if he claimed to understand it, he never did.
Well,
so I was constantly that guy while he was claiming to be. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
We had this conversation last night on the Anarchist Experience with Richie Rich.
Great guy, great show.
Absolutely great guy, great show, and I've never met one in the wild, and he was
one of the people who's changed. You mean
that's changed, and that the woman that you mentioned is the only example that I've actually ever heard besides Chris Cantwell, and I think Chris Cantwell is a complete controlled opposition plant. Like if you've seen the Vice thing, we did a kind of like a little breakdown on how they did the Charlottesville they had like a dozen different groups that, they brought in some conservatives and some constitutionalists, some white separatists, and then like a little handful of Nazis. And then they have a torchlight parade, and Vice just happens to be with the group of Nazis, which makes everybody look like Nazis.
I deeply think that Chris, that I still want to believe that from all the conversations that I've had with him over time, I don't actually believe that he believes any of the racist stuff that he spouts. That's what he's using to make money with. And I'm just going to out it. I don't care if it's blowing up, because nobody's going to listen to this and, figure it out properly anyway. So I don't mind blowing up what I feel like is his, actual plan of what he's doing. But if you look at it from an anarcho-capitalist perspective of somebody who's was trying to make money, I think now it blew up. It
failed.
I think it blew up in his face. I think he thought it was going to work, and now he's stuck.
For a little while it did.
Yeah, now he's stuck. There's no way to back out, so he's just, accepting whatever, he can accept. But I feel like what he is doing and has brought to the forefront is actually kind of brilliant in terms of getting libertarians to wake up to the stomping on free speech that's going on online. And Cantwell has absolutely fleshed out in every possible way how someone can be silenced.
He's been deplatformed quite a bit.
He's been deplatformed and
debanked.
And I feel like every single time he was just looking for that specifically, so that what he was actually doing was just pushing against the boundaries to see where they are, and point it out and kind of carve a pathway for everyone else to see really clearly, like, hey, this platform is gonna, if you do something that they don't like, regardless of whether or not there's consistency or whether or not there's, what their rules say, he's just, they're gonna come down and change what they say for whatever reasons that they so choose.
Well, Cantwell is one of the longest running. We've joked sort of off the air, and we've talked about it on the air, about how everybody who's new to New Hampshire, like you were, Etienne, this summer, is accused of being the Fed. Basically, and it's a nasty habit that some people have around here, and it is not welcoming towards new people. It's not good, but it has happened a lot of times. Cantwell's one of the few that people still, I think, a lot of them still believe that he is a federal agent.
What's that other guy? Hal Stevenson?
You're talking about the old racist talk show host?
Yeah,
from back
Hal Turner.
Yeah.
There it is.
Which he was a Fed.
He was.
This
was an informant.
This is my point. No, but this is my point. Is the reason that people are so conscious about it is because it's a real dynamic. It's 100% real dynamic.
Yeah,
it is.
And they've done it before. They'll do it again.
Oh yeah. They did it in COINTELPRO. They did it in the color revolutions, like the George Soros sponsored color revolutions in Ukraine and in Georgia. I mean, that is the name of the game. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. And if you take a look at the Women's March on Washington, they knew that they were going to have opposition to this misogynist, ridiculous clown Trump. Yeah. And so then they bring in 60 plus George Soros funded groups, bring all of these women into Washington, D.C. They lead them into a brick wall of worthless slogans, worthless demands, worthless program. They tell them to roll over. They tell them, just accept. They called it an acceptance of suffering. And then, as the piece de resistance, they dress them in pussy hats.
Yep.
And somebody's in Langley, Virginia, rolling around on the floor going, I told you we could do it. I told you they'd put on the pussy hats. They're a bunch of pussies. It's so you got to be on the lookout for it. Yeah. And so I wish it wasn't the case. But when you see somebody inciting violence, within the liberty movement, and then they can't sell it in the liberty movement, so now they go and try and they sell it in the alt-right movement, and then they're on Vice, and not just on Vice, but Vice goes into their hotel room, and then he starts pulling out like a dozen guns. I'm like, this is the most scripted thing I've ever seen from Vice, which is a controlled perception television show.
Well, I mean, as one of the people who has spent probably more time with Chris Cantwell than most people, I would say, probably, I mean, his mother probably beats me out, but I've spent a lot of time with Chris. I still don't know what to think of him. Like, the Chris Cantwell pulling out a bunch of guns, that's totally something Chris Cantwell would do, right? Like knowing him, he would have a bunch of guns on him. And he was just over here the other night because he was on Vincent's show over the weekend, and afterwards he talked about he referred to Chris Cantwell as a character once again, which is not the first time that he has done that. So there's more coming up here in moments. We can continue. We'll get deeper into the story about the non-aggression principle, and your calls and thoughts welcome.
You will understand the true intent of the Founding Fathers when they wrote the Constitution if you attend this free webinar. Chris Ann Hall, president of Liberty First University, doesn't simply regurgitate what some professor or expert has said about the Constitution. She relays the thoughts and opinions of those who wrote the documents. Her straightforward, passionate, easy-to-understand style lets anyone grasp the principles of liberty. Join us at lfu.freetalklive.com to watch the free pre-recorded webinar. Watch now at lfu.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. You can join us here. The toll-free number, if you'd like to do that and get on the radio, is 855-450-FREE, and you can bring up whatever's on your mind. You don't have to talk about the non-aggression principle, which we're going to get into further here. We just barely scratched the surface of a story that I'm sure we're going to have plenty to say about here, where one man is advocating, and he's not by no means the first to do this, but it's an interesting article so far, so we're going to continue it. But over at libertarianism.org, one guy is saying libertarians ought to get rid of the non-aggression principle, and he's going to give us some of his reasons why he believes that should happen. The non-aggression principle is, of course, the base principle of libertarianism, the idea that, hey, it's not okay to use violence against your neighbor, aggressive violence. It's not okay to threaten your neighbors in order to get them to do the things you want them to do or to not do the things you don't want them to do. And, of course, that's the tool that the government uses. The government gang uses the threat of violence and actual violence to enforce its will upon you. And that's not all right. And it's not all right if one person does it, like your common criminal. It's not all right if a dozen people do it, like a gang. And it's not all right if a bunch of, 51% of people do it by going to the ballot box. So with you in the studio tonight, I'm Ian.
I'm Johnson.
Etienne de la Boetie squared.
Welcome. Etienne is with us here, special guest host, newer mover to New Hampshire as part of the freedom migration of liberty-minded folks that have been migrating here for years. He came here over the summertime, arriving during Fork Fest and the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and we had the opportunity to meet previously at the Anarchapulco event a couple of years prior to that, and
for a couple of years,
it was a real pleasure to see you move up here, because I always know the real hardcores when they move to New Hampshire, because it's cold up here. So you got to be pretty hardcore to not only pick up your whole life and move it somewhere else, but to move to a place that's relatively foreboding and not so populated. It's wonderful to have you here. So thanks for joining us here tonight, Johnson. Let's continue with this story of yours.
All right. So it continues to say here, the NAP's plausibility...
That's the non-aggression principle.
Yes. The non-aggression principle's plausibility is superficial. It is, of course, common sense to think that aggression is a bad thing. But it is far from common sense to think that its badness is absolute, such that the wrongness of aggression always trumps any other possible consideration of justice or political morality. There is a vast difference between a strong but defensible presumption against the justice of aggression and an absolute universal position. As Brian Kaplan has said, if you can't think of counterexamples to the latter, you're not trying hard enough. But I'm here to help.
Okay, good, because we've come across a few over the years, so I'm curious to hear what it is that he comes up with.
Yeah. In the remainder of this essay, I want to present 6 reasons why libertarians should reject the non-aggression principle. None of them are original to me. Each is logically independent of the others. Taken together, I think they make a fairly overwhelming case.
All right. I'm prepared to be overwhelmed.
Here's the first one. 1. Prohibits all pollution. As I noted in my last post, Rothbard himself recognized that industrial pollution violates the NAP and must therefore be prohibited. But Rothbard did not draw the full implications of his principle. Not just industrial pollution, but personal pollution produced by driving, burning wood in one's fireplace, smoking, etc., runs afoul of the non-aggression principle. The non-aggression principle implies that all of these activities must be prohibited, no matter how beneficial they may be.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. I don't think I've ever heard any libertarian say, "Nope, you can't have a campfire."
Yeah.
My understanding.
Well, let me
sure.
because it's just a sentence.
Yeah.
So let me just complete it. He says the non-aggression principle implies that all of these activities must be prohibited, no matter how beneficial they may be in other respects, and no matter how essential they are to daily life in the modernized, industrialized world. And this is deeply implausible.
No, that's a complete misunderstanding of the NAP, because
Right.
for anybody to be able to quote-unquote do anything about the pollution, you have to have an organization with the ability to use violence. And so if you're a supporter of the non-aggression principle, then you know that government is impossible. And so how are you going to stop these things without a government?
Well, no, the idea is
there
that
are ways to do it, but I mean,
is that as if you are engaging in pollution at all, that you are violating the non-aggression principle because you are aggressing against someone else.
That's even sillier.
And that if you are someone who prescribes to the non-aggression principle, you can never engage in any form of aggression at all. That's the idea that this person is saying, that if you support the non-aggression principle, you must also support the idea that you can never engage in any kind of aggression, whatever.
Well, you generally should not engage in any kind of aggression, although there are a few examples that
Should
you
not
might
and
want.
will not and do not are huge.
Like the
differences.
classic example that we've come up with here over the years is, what if Etienne is unaware you're in some sort of drunken state and you're standing in the road and there's a bus coming your direction and you have no idea. It would be an aggressive act for me to push you out of the way and save your life. But after the fact, you might thank me for it. So there are some of these examples where the non-aggression principle doesn't quite hold up, but generally it's a pretty good principle. But to come back to the pollution question here, generally, as I understand the libertarian position on pollution, is that, yes, it could be considered aggressive to pollute or to pump whatever it is into the air, but ultimately you have to make a case for that. Just the fact that somebody's got a smokestack in the air doesn't necessarily mean that anybody's being damaged. If the particles per million are relatively low, it's probably not doing anything to anybody. If you can prove, however, that whatever the smokestack is bellowing out is actually causing damage to people or property, then you may have a viable case against that particular company. Now, in the absence of the state, what do you do to put a stop to this? Well, you can use the media. You can use the internet. You can spread the word.
Consumer boycott.
The boycott, exactly right. And there are other things. There could be insurance companies that could get involved to pull policies or whatever. And again, some sort of a lawsuit in whatever kind of non-governmental court system that we might have, some kind of arbitration.
Well, I think that's
tort.
the thing that so let me ask you guys now, if you were to say what do you believe the cornerstone is, or the center of, at least in America, I think it's probably going to be a similar answer in most other justice systems around the world, what would you say the central tenets of American justice are? Like, what's the founding principle upon how a judge makes decisions in a case?
Will it benefit the state? In a lot of cases.
That's probably one. Yeah, that's probably one.
Does the client have
but like,
money?
Okay, let's say somebody's solving a civil suit. Is it always? I mean, let's not be completely entirely cynical, because I don't think anybody's going to accept that if you're really making that as an argument. I think it's probably more accurate than most people are willing to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But for those that are completely unwilling to believe that, I mean, are there any guiding principles at all to our justice system that beyond money and the state I think that there have to be some. I mean, I think that there are some people that believe that there's, I think that people would completely reject if that were totally true and people actually believed that. Then I think that there are enough people that would then, revolt and reject the justice system entirely. I think that people believe that there are some moral principles behind the justice system. I think that those people exist. Right?
Well, there's a fantasy, a religious belief, as you touched on earlier, Etienne, that the belief in the state is a religious belief system. And nowhere beyond the courtroom is it more obvious. I mean, look at this. You have pews. You literally have. They're just missing the Holy Bible.
They sit on high.
Right? They don't have a hymnal sitting in front of you, but
they sit on high.
Right?
They wear vestments.
A robe. The man wears a robe. He walks in. There are he has his acolytes in the room who will do his bidding, and he bellows from the bench, and the acolytes. They act. They do what they're told to do. Arrest that man! And they arrest that man. It doesn't matter whether the arrest is illegal.
But I think that the reason why they do that is not just because, they're blindly serving the state, but there are people that believe that there is some form of justice being meted out,
yes.
right? They believe that there are some moral principles, and it's what are those moral principles that the state is acting upon.
They don't have those.
If there are any.
No, they don't have those. It's the belief that there are some, but they don't actually exist.
Yeah, they're not consistent. It's certainly not consistent at the very least.
Well, because law is based on opinion.
Well, there's different types of law, right?
Hold that thought. We can continue. You can share your thoughts as well. This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything that you want. All you got to do, take control of the airwaves here. The toll-free number, 855-450-FREE. Should the Libertarians just reject the non-aggression principle? It's not that great for whatever reason. I'm not sure what these reasons are going to be, but there's an article, Johnson, that you're going to share with us where the article author says, yeah, here's 6 reasons, and we're on reason number 1 right now.
Yeah.
And his first reason was pretty lame, which is to say he claims that all pollution is aggression and so therefore prohibited by the non-aggression principle. And I don't think that's necessarily
And I was
true.
asking you guys what you thought if there were any central moral principles, because clearly people believe that they're getting justice to a certain extent, right? There are some people that believe that our justice system in at least the United States, provides some kind of protection, that there's, our military provides some kind of protection. They have this, completely unfounded belief that, the police and the military and the courts are there to somehow protect you and provide you with some kind of justice, and they're bringing peace and a rule of law, right? Which
that's what they say.
Yeah.
Well, and as I mentioned right before the break,
it's only once you actually get some experience with these people that you realize that was a mistake. That you were completely wrong, that there is no duty to protect you for the most part, unless you're having completely superficial interactions.
And the
with
justice system has no real principles behind it. They have a set of rules they supposedly follow.
I'm going to take debate with that because I believe that they do. But here's the problem. There's criminal law, civil law, tort law, statutory law, common law, and intellectual property law. There are these different... There are all those different types of law, and they're all operating on different principles. It's kind of like the different organizations of government, right? Like different bureaus and bureaucracies all operate on different principles. So I was actually watching a video from Prager University today about a guy who runs a cookie company for selling like sugar-free diet cookies for diabetics. And it was actually a really interesting video. And he was talking about all the red tape he has to go through, with his very slim profit margins, that he's got to deal with all these regulations and bureaucracy nonsense. And one of the examples he was saying is that he's got the FDA, which has some sort of ridiculous regulation on the doors in the kitchen where the doors have to open out because he's like having to encapsulate, like no food particles can like move from the kitchen into another area. Well, he's got the agriculture department because he's doing stuff with agricultural products like milk, and they have a regulation that states that the doors have to open in.
Yeah. There's no principle here.
He had to have one door that opened out and one door that opened in.
Ridiculous.
Right? So in your list of different laws, you left out natural law, which is the only law that you really need, and it's the one that's philosophically and morally consistent.
Right.
But if you think about it, all of the law that they've got can all be replaced by natural law, and the tenets of natural law is there's really five.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that either, because natural law, right, is the I mean, if you're going to go with the ultimate natural law, you're going to be the type of person who's going to say might makes right. Right? That's natural law.
No,
to a certain extent.
Natural law is essentially.
You're going to say there's 5 tenets?
There's 5 breaches of natural law, and so there's assault, rape, theft, trespass, and coercion, and each of those
are actually covered. Those would be what our current law system would call torts. Those would all fall under tort law.
Right, but but my point is that all of those are a theft of some kind or another. And so if you think about it, assault is the theft of physical well-being. Rape is the theft of sexual choice. Theft of physical property is theft. Theft of trespass is theft of security. And coercion is theft of consent. And so when people talk about what is a right, everybody's like, I've got a right to do this. Hey, I've got a right to do that. Well, the basis of that is natural law. And the thing so a right, so all of those things are obviously wrong because there's a victim in each of those cases. And so those are wrongs. A right is anything that's not a wrong.
Indeed.
So you're either hurting, and then if you wanted to break it down even further, all of those can be reduced to do no harm. And
this is a beautiful thing.
Right. And look how simple that is. And if you have that basis in natural law, then you've got a basis in morality. And if you have a basis in morality, then you don't need to hire a $500 lawyer to go to court. You don't have to do anything. You just come, you can come before a group of your peers and
show how the harm was done.
And show how the harm was done. And it becomes, did you harm them? Or
obvious, right? Like that's what the non-aggression principle is it's sort of a well-structured way of saying do no harm in a form that is meant to be the primary cornerstone of any justice system, right? Of any kind of society, like not necessarily justice system in the sense that we think of it now, where you have a legally taxed, like it's a justice system that supports itself through anything but justice by stealing from people, and stealing funding to support itself. But let's say a society built around the idea that aggression should be somehow restituted, that if someone either intentionally or negligently commits an aggression against someone else, that they make that person whole. And
that also does not exist within, to some extent it can, but for the most part in the criminal justice system, the money that you pay out in a fine doesn't actually go to the victim in a lot of cases. There are some cases where
it's called retribution-based justice versus restoration.
Well, to come back to your original question, Johnson, which I don't think we've really had a chance to get into here, at least I didn't feel like I had a chance to answer it, about the principles behind the so-called justice system. There are no principles beyond the rule of man. So and that's a changing sort of chimera, right? Like it is changing with the moment. Law is, and I think Mark Stevens coined this one, and I love it. It's an opinion backed by a gun. That's all that law is. When you have these Supreme Court justices, these robed men and women, they make a decision 100 years ago. Well, the current Supreme Court can make a completely different decision. They generally base their decisions on prior decisions, but sometimes they overturn the prior decisions and they completely change the law because of that. Now, in some cases, it's made sense for them to do it in certain instances, but it just goes to show that there are no actual principles behind this.
And the non-aggression principle, it's not an idea that you never are able to, you're locked into this, you can't transgress against anyone ever, you can't have any kind of trespass against someone either accidentally or intentionally because you're completely locked into this pacifistic state, where you can't pollute, you can't do anything because you might harm someone else. It's about the idea that you are a type of person who is you're going to make somebody whole if you
did the wrong if you did the wrong thing, or you thought you were doing the right thing but you did the wrong thing. If I knock Etienne out of the way of the bus and he was like, "Well, I was trying to kill myself. Now I'm mad at you. You should have let me die." Then I would be sorry for it and try to make things right by not knocking him out of the way again. I don't know what the punishment would be.
And
for
that should be the central of any sort of system or society who values real justice, right?
All right,
Not
we got
just
more coming up
fake
here.
justice.
The toll-free number, if you want to join the discussion, 855-450, free like freedom. This is Free Talk Live.
Chronic pain, stress and anxiety, fatigue or lack of focus, dependence on opioids or opiates? John Bush here, owner of Brave Botanicals, inviting you to try a free ounce of kratom, the controversial plant remedy the government doesn't want you to know about. Why, you ask? Well, it's big competition for big pharma. From grandmothers cutting Oxycontin to keep up with their grandkids, to young adults kicking Adderall and quitting drinking, more Americans are turning to Kratom to help them through the day. But the government won't stop us. When the credit card companies kicked Kratom to the curb, I accepted e-checks and crypto. When Facebook shut down my ad account, I did podcast interviews and advertised on Free Talk Live. And now, to give a big F-U to the man, I'm giving away Kratom for free. To get your free ounce of Kratom, go to freeounceofkratom.com, pay $5 shipping and handling, and I'll send you a free ounce. Visit freeounceofkratom.com to claim your free ounce today. That's freeounceofkratom.com.
Free Talk Live. Join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. It's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord call-in line rooms. They're open and available to you over at discord.lrn.fm, so hop into one of those. You'll sound almost like you're sitting here in the studio with us. And by the way, I do want you to know about Liberty.menu. Libertarians for a long time have wanted to know about other liberty-minded folks and their businesses. But there's never really been a good online Liberty business directory until Liberty.menu. They finally got it, and they did a great job. It's a super easy-to-use website, and it's free. So you go to Liberty.menu. Maybe you've got a thing that you do. Maybe you've got a business. Maybe you're a content creator like Etienne, who's got a book. UnderstandingOurSlavery.com is his website. But if you want to add the thing that you do to Liberty.menu so other libertarians and voluntarists and anarchists can find out about you, then you should do that because it's free. So why not? Get on over to Liberty.menu. It's exclusively for individuals who reject the initiation of force. So that's Liberty.menu's creator saying, hey, if you're one of these anti-non-aggression principle people, you're not welcome at Liberty.menu. You got to actually understand freedom and agree to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle in order to sign up and use Liberty.menu. So it's a free site, but you got to have principles. Go to Liberty.menu. You can use code FTL like Free Talk Live. You get a Free Talk Live listener badge on your profile for doing that. And, there are some upgrades that you can pay for Liberty.menu, but by itself, you can list the things you do for free. And maybe you've got an event that you are coordinating or involved with. You can list your events there, too. Liberty.menu. As we go to your calls and thoughts, more from Johnson with the story that is attacking the non-aggression principle. We're only through point 1 of 6, so we got to get to the other 5 here. But let's go to Tom. He's in New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Tom.
It's about a letter that the White House lawyer sent to the House of Representatives to explain why the White House will not be participating in these proceedings, and they're not going to go and answer stuff that the House of Representatives has not been following all the correct procedures, and there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about what's going on, okay? Now, picture a pedestrian walking up to a cop and say, somebody's breaking into a car around the corner. Okay, that's the whistleblower report. Now, let's say the cop is going to walk around the corner and see, is there somebody breaking into a parked car? And the breaker would have the perfect excuse if the breaker owns the car and locked the keys inside. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the cop is checking into it. That is the equivalent of the current impeachment inquiry. And you don't have the right to cross-examination of and confront your accuser or any of that. That's going on right now is investigating into it. If breaking into a parked car is a felony, then you don't go to a trial until after an indictment. That would be the impeachment. Okay, well, it's not at that point yet. The impeachment proceeding would take place, but right now it's simply the impeachment inquiry. Check it out. Is somebody breaking into a parked car? Is the breaker the owner of the car? That's where it's at now. And they're talking about how the president isn't being given the right to confront the accusers face-to-face and all of this other stuff. But the one point that really has to be mentioned, catch it every time the enemies of liberty bring it up, because it's one of the big lies in all kinds of political discussions, and lies always suit the bad guys. Quote, simply put, you seek to overturn the results of the 2016 election and deprive the American people of the president they have freely chosen, unquote. Excuse me, but when they do this, always remember what your geometry teacher told you. For a statement to be true, it has to be true for all cases. That statement accuses me, one of the American people, of having freely chosen Trump. And it accuses all of you and everybody else there of having freely chosen Trump.
And who made this statement? I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on that.
The statement in the letter, quote,
which letter?
Put simply, a letter from the White House to Nancy Pelosi and the various three chairmen, and it's, quote, put simply, you seek to overturn the results of the 2016 election and deprive the American people of the president they have freely chosen, unquote. And so I'm just calling to point this out. When
well, you're not wrong. I mean, most people did not choose Donald Trump, right? Most people either didn't
only
vote.
26% of people, roughly, and it's not even 26, it's like 25 point whatever voted for Trump.
Right, because you're including there, Etienne, the fact that many people don't vote at all.
In fact, I just happen to have the exact stats right here.
Oh, really?
So 46.9% did not vote.
Right.
25.6% voted for Clinton, and 25.5% voted for Trump. 1.7% voted for Johnson. But so even the fact, the big crime, the real crime, is the fact that everybody gets a government imposed on them, even though only 25.5% of the population voted for them.
And how many of those people were voting for Trump because he wasn't Clinton? What you never really know is why people chose the way they chose. We have no idea.
Can I point something out here? Okay, because I never know when you're going to cut me off there. That when they when you're on the stage in a debate or any kind of, when somebody says, excuse me, but the American people strongly support that law, the best rebuttal is, no, I do not. And then again invoke what your geometry teacher told you. No, I do not. You accused me of supporting that law. Or in this
Good
case,
point, Tom. Thank you for sharing that. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Yeah, I'm pretty sure 100% of this studio did not consent to being ruled by either Clinton or Trump. Not interested. I'd like to opt out, please. I don't support this whole federal government concept, let alone the state of New Hampshire. I certainly don't support them, but at least I can talk to some of those guys.
It really is the big con. Government is illegitimate for so many different reasons. You can't delegate rights. You don't have yourself to a representative or a government. You can't be bound by a contract that you yourself didn't sign.
Right.
And so, if you go back to the founding, you got 36 slave owners get together in a room. They write down on a piece of paper that they alone get to make up rules for everyone,
right.
and they alone get to steal the wealth of others, which is ridiculous on its face. But then, because it's the government and the media working together, it's an organized crime system, they have their newspapers proclaim it's valid. We have a new government. It's magnificent. And then they just proceed to kind of take over. And then we will, how many people actually voted for that? Definitely less than 1% or, in the first election, election. And so
how many people would have even known that was going on at
that time? Exactly.
News travel by horseback at best.
Right. And so that's essentially how they did it. So we just kind of take over. And then, by the way, the Bill of Rights, that just goes right out the window. Jefferson, Washington and Hamilton lead an army of 13,000 immediately into Pennsylvania to put down the Whiskey Rebellion.
Right.
They search homes without warrants. They
new boss, same as the old boss.
You got so all of that Bill of Rights right out the door. We're in charge. We're taking your money.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's been ever since.
Well, feel better because it's not going to the king. See, it's all better now. All right, Johnson, let's continue here.
Okay, well, the second point here that it goes on about the non-aggression principle, its continued attack here, is that the non-aggression principle prohibits all pollution because its prohibition on aggression is absolute. No amount of aggression, no matter how small, is morally permissible, and no amount of offsetting benefits can change this fact. And then it says, but suppose, to borrow a thought from Hume, that I could prevent the destruction of a whole world by lightly scratching your finger, or perhaps...
Oh, my God. This is still
by
the pollution
imposing a very
part?
small tax on billionaires.
More coming up here. We'll get to the next point. It's free. It's Free Talk Live. Should the libertarian movement reject the non-aggression principle? Well, I mean, that's basically asking the question of should the libertarian movement completely destroy itself, because that's the foundational principle that the whole concept is based on. But yet somebody who has taken control of a website called libertarianism.org is advocating for
or
this.
at least has written a single article.
Well, they're publishing it. And we're going to get into points 2 through 6 on his 6 points of why he believes that he's serious that the non-aggression principle should be gotten rid of. We'll continue with that discussion here, and if you want to join in, you can. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. And I want to make sure you know about the Edge wallet. If you're interested in cryptocurrency, you've got to have a wallet in which you can then store that cryptocurrency. Technically, you're storing the keys to your cryptocurrency, but that's a more technical discussion. You can get Edge Wallet. It's one of the myriad of different choices out there. Why should you choose Edge? Well, because, in my opinion, it's the best cryptocurrency wallet that is available today. And I have tried a bunch of different crypto wallets, and I came to this conclusion long before they became an advertiser here on Free Talk Live. Been a big fan of Edge. I use it more than any other wallet out there, and it's available for both iOS and for Android. So whatever, mobile device you have, you can get Edge. It'll allow you to buy, sell, trade, and, of course, securely hold your favorite cryptocurrencies. There's a few dozen options there inside Edge. They will help you secure your freedom. They've got a veteran team that's been building wallets since 2014. Go to edge.app. That's their website where you can learn more about the technology. It's edge.app, or just go and download it right now through your Google or Apple App Store. And again, that's the Edge wallet. It'll let you hold your Bitcoin BTC, your Bitcoin Cash, your Dash, Ethereum, various Ethereum tokens, Monero, Ripple, Stellar, and many more. Edge.app. As we continue here, of course, take your calls and thoughts. So, Johnson, you are going to get to point number 2 here on this guy's list of reasons to get rid of the non-aggression principle.
Any minute.
I'm going to rehash this one here real quick. So the non-aggression principle prohibits all pollution because it's prohibition.
This is the opinion of the guy writing this. Okay. Just ridiculous.
Yes. Non-aggression principle prohibits all pollution because its prohibition on aggression is absolute. No amount of aggression, no matter how small, is morally permissible, and no amount of offsetting benefits can change this fact. But suppose, to borrow a thought from Hume, that I could prevent the destruction of the whole world by lightly scratching your finger. Or, to take perhaps a more plausible example, suppose that by imposing a very, very small tax on billionaires, I could provide life-saving vaccinations for tens of thousands of desperately poor children. Even if we grant that taxation is aggression, and that aggression is generally wrong, is it really so obvious that the relatively minor aggression involved in these examples is wrong, given the tremendous benefit it produces?
Wow,
yes.
That's utilitarianism, folks.
It's also situational ethics, and you can make up a gazillion of these, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a principle, we're not going to hurt you or steal your stuff. The second that you say, oh, in certain cases, it's okay to steal your stuff. And
Boom, there's the exception. And now it's
boom,
you're going to push a Mack truck through it, right?
Well, then, why can't we do it for this? And why can't we do that? Well, we just did it for that.
Well, and look at the way he terms it's just a little tax on the billionaires. It's a minor aggression.
Right.
Well, it may seem minor to him because he's not the one who's enforcing it. He's not the one who's doing anything about it. He's just a thinker. He's out here thinking about these things. But when you're the actual victim of the tax, when somebody comes to you and says, hey, hand it over or else. And then they put you in a jail cell or put a gun to your head in order to get it, which is the violence that backs all of these minor aggressions.
Here's the thing that is also not addressed by this, right? Who is he to judge that the aggression is minor? Right? Now,
someone who's promoting aggression is who he is.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing. It could be that it's that what he's perceiving as something that's a minor aggression is actually, a harm that is greater than perceived. So, for example, I was giving the example of the guy who was operating on the 1% margins, and that they have these aggressions that are supposed to be protections, by the Ag Department and the FDA, where doors are opening inwards and outwards, and it gets to ridiculous levels because you have people that are making these judgments that have no business making these judgments, right? I mean, it's not necessarily that, aggression can generate harms that are, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say or how I can more clearly
It's the unintended consequences of regulation.
Yeah, there's unintended consequences. Not only are there unintended consequences, but potentially there are benefits that are being squashed by the aggressions as well.
Like the benefit of having jobs from this guy who might go out of business because the regulations are going to put him under.
Right, exactly.
Like the benefits of living in a peaceful, harmonious, free society.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be nice if we could do that.
I know, and it's so simple. All you got to do is follow the non-aggression principle, and boom, there you go.
Leave people alone.
Okay, so now I've had my train of
the train's back on track.
The train of thought has come back on the rails here. So the other thought here is that if it were such a small aggression, right? If it were really such a small aggression, why wouldn't that be able to be achieved without aggression?
It would,
through persuasion,
right,
and through.
Hey, billionaire.
Voluntary action. Hey, billionaire, you can save
How'd you like
lives.
to save some lives?
Right. And if that billionaire isn't willing to,
go to the next one.
Why are you to not trust their reasoning on that? And if they, even if it's
there are other
purely
billionaires.
selfish, there are, not only there are other billionaires, but suppose their answer is just, I don't want to. It's good enough. Yeah. Right? I mean, if it's not good enough for you, then you clearly have a moral issue.
Because that billionaire could be a pretend billionaire like Donald Trump.
He could be
he could be completely underwater on his properties where the banks have him by the balls, like Donald Trump.
So here's number 3.
Okay. So what number 2 was? We need a little aggressions. We need this. This baby aggression.
Number 3 is the non-aggression principle clearly implies that it's wrong for me to shoot you in the head. But to borrow an example from David Friedman, what if I merely run the risk of shooting you by putting one bullet in a 6-shot revolver, spinning the cylinder, aiming it at your head, and squeezing the trigger? What if it's not one bullet, but 5? Of course, almost everything we do imposes some risk of harm on innocent persons. We run the risk when we drive on the run the risk when we drive on the highway. But what if we suffer a heart attack or become distracted while we're driving on the highway? We could harm someone. Or when we fly airplanes over populated areas. Most of us think that some of these risks are justifiable while others are not, and that the difference between them has something to do with the size and likelihood of the risked harm. Driving while drunk, I'm assuming, is probably another purported example of what this is hinting at, I think. But he's saying something to do with the size and likelihood of the risk the risk harm, the importance of the risky activity, and the availability and costs of less risky activity. But considerations like this carry zero weight in the non-aggression principle's absolute prohibition on aggression. That principle seems compatible with only two possible rules. Either all risks are permissible because they are not really aggression until they actually result in a harm, or none are because they are. And neither of these here seems plausible.
So he's saying that he believes the non-aggression principle means that you can't take a risk, or that you can take any risk.
He's saying that it has to be one or the other, right? You would have to either say that you would have to argue that that taking a risk with harming someone is not actually aggression, or that all risks are aggression. In other words, that either you, like he would be equating, for example, drinking and driving to putting a bullet in a gun and pointing it at someone's head, which is actually probably an example that somebody who hates drinking and driving would actually make. But essentially, he's saying, like, you can't say that it would be okay to drink and drive and not okay to point a gun at someone's head and pull the trigger if there's one bullet in the cylinder or whatever.
So this is just a bizarre objection here, right? So
it's so dumb that
it's hard to really.
It's nowhere to start.
Yeah, I think most sane people would say that you are threatening somebody when you put one bullet into
it's an applied death
revolver.
Threat. Pointing a gun of any sort,
whether there's a bullet in there or not,
death threat, and it opens you immediately up to retaliatory violence.
Absolutely, it
100%.
Does. But yet, somebody getting behind the wheel of a car in a normal state is, though there is a risk involved, relatively small. By comparison, so by no means is that an implied death threat. But what about the drunken driver? Well, let's get a little bit further.
Hello, everyone. This is Courtney Schrem, and I want to invite you to join my husband and I, Charlie Schrem, on his new show, Untold Stories, for a deep dive into crypto history with the people who made that history. Together, we'll explore the personalities and events that gave rise to Bitcoin and the crypto revolution, the innovation, the collaboration, the battles, and the busts. You'll have a front row seat to the early days of crypto up to today, and you'll hear it from the folks who lived through it and survived to drive this movement mainstream. Untold Stories looks back to reveal what inspired some of the greatest minds on Earth to come together to create this technology and change the future for everyone. So join Charlie and his guests, the techies and the traders, the entrepreneurs and the innovators, as they explore our past and understand what that means for the future.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
And Johnson.
And Etienne de la Boetie.
We have been talking about this article, Johnson, that you brought in here tonight. It is a criticism of the idea of the non-aggression principle.
I want to devil's advocate for this last bad. You guys both attacked it as a very bad argument. I think that I need to devil's advocate for it to explain a little better, because I kind of feel like I understand where it's coming from in an understanding of the incorrect understanding that some people have, that the non-aggression principle is a prohibition on aggression, right? Which I think that people believe that if you
it's a principle, which
it's
means
a principle,
it could be,
but it's like pacifism is a principle, right? But pacifism, I think, is a lot more solid of a principle. In other words, like, pacifists generally, there are pacifists where it's like, okay, I'm never going to, engage in a fight, but there are pacifists that also believe that you should never even step on a bug.
Mm-hmm.
There are pacifists, like, okay, well, you can't step on a bug, but obviously you're going to harm some of the bacteria that live in your skin because you can't help it.
Sure.
You have to come to an understanding. Like, it gets to the point of where it's like,
it gets to the point of this is ridiculous.
It gets ridiculous, but you have to kind of understand. So, like, I understand where the ridiculousness is coming from, but I feel like I should devil's advocate for this because okay,
well,
so
can you recap for those that are just tuning in where we're at with
sure
this?
Let me go to the back. So I don't want to cover the whole thing, but it basically says the non-aggression principle clearly implies that it's wrong for me to shoot you in the head, as he says, but what if I merely run the risk? He's basically talking about is that the non-aggression principle is that has an all or nothing attitude towards risking committing aggression against someone or committing
well, hold on,
aggressively risky aggressive behaviors, right?
Well, driving while drunk, which was one of the points that he makes, isn't necessarily an aggressive act. It may be a stupid act. It could be an act that has
about waving a loaded firearm at somebody? You don't have your finger on the trigger, but you're pointing.
That is absolutely an aggressive act. There's no way that anyone could take that as anything but an aggressive act.
But I think there are a lot of people that could say that it's completely irresponsible and therefore a matter of harm to drive. To drive drunk because you don't have a need to do that.
Well, hold on. It is irresponsible to drive drunk, but how drunk are we talking about? Because that's another important question.
Let's say dangerously.
Okay, dangerously drunk. Then yeah, it's incredibly irresponsible. However, is it aggression to do that? I don't know. I think that's arguable.
At what point do we determine it's dangerous? I mean, still doing breathalyzer tests, and I think the reason why I'm advocating for this is because
well, you're not advocating for anything.
Well, no, I mean, I'm devil's advocating is what I mean for this. Is that I do feel like if you're creating a system of, say, justice with the non-aggression principle to center, then this is an issue that would have to be somewhat dealt with if you're going to.
Well, how would you deal with it then?
Think about
you're now a private road owner,
right?
Somebody's just got out the bar,
right,
and they're getting in their car and they're driving down your road.
Well, then it's your private road. You get to make that decision, right? So
how would you deal with it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
you deal with it like a business owner. I mean, so you would, assuming you've got people that are patrolling the road, you would try and pull up next to the guy. You'd flash your lights at him. Is he going to pull over or is he not? Mm-hmm. If he doesn't pull over, maybe your tow truck runs him off the road because you perceive him to be that much of a risk of somebody of doing it, and he's not obeying the laws of your road. He's weaving.
Well, wait a minute.
Out.
Then you've run him off the road. So now some sort of arbitration has to decide: was your harm? He runs into a tree, dies.
Hey! I wasn't drunk.
Now his family is suing you. Right?
I wasn't drunk. I was having a diabetic shock attack here. I was out of it. I couldn't control my car. It wasn't because I was drunk.
Well, then, so the assumption is if you can't control your car and it's out of control, then somebody needs to
stop you.
Stop you.
Right. So the reason why I devil's advocate for this, because justice, right, as...
First of all, I thought you were devil's advocating just because he had made such a dumb argument that you felt the need to strengthen it so it makes somewhat of a little bit of sense.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. But I think that the point that's being brought up that it was sort of poorly brought up, is that and you made a good example here with this, running the guy off the road, and he could be having a diabetic attack, and right, justice and sort of mediating, right, is extremely complicated. Mm-hmm. So our existing legal system is already a gigantic mess. So if you're going to put this principle, the non-aggression principle, at the center of a justice system and try and sort of figure out between people, how someone is going to be made whole based on any kind of reciprocity or, level of which they've committed aggression against someone else, right? To any kind of, like with respect to the severity of the aggression, right? Mm-hmm. How does that get figured out with light to this whole risky situation. In other words, like if you're waving a gun at someone versus driving on the road, I mean, is it a bigger violation? Well, is it not?
It's a way bigger violation to wave a gun at somebody because that's an imminent threat to that person, or at least it can be perceived and should be perceived in that way. Somebody driving down the road.
But isn't that subjective? In other
of
words,
course it's
what
subjective,
I'm saying is that there's these subjectives.
Most
there
people
are
who
lots
are
of
sane,
subjective things.
Everything in this case is subjective. In the case of driving down the road, it's subjective in the way the person is driving. If you are S-faced drunk and you just get out of a bar and you hop behind the wheel, but you are at least aware that you're S-faced, it's still drunk driving to go 5 miles an hour down the road, but you're not a threat to anybody at that point, right?
Right.
Like if you know you can get home as long as you're able to go 5 miles an hour and you just kind of take your car home as slowly as you possibly can, you're probably going to be all right. There's a good chance of that. In this society, if the cop sees you going 5 miles an hour, you better believe you're getting pulled over and you're going to get a breathalyzer and you're going to get taken to jail, even though you probably would have been fine to get home in that case. Whereas somebody with a gun waving it at somebody, there's no circumstance under which that's ever okay, unless you're filming a movie or something like that, and then everybody's consenting and there's cameras around or something.
Well, I think you have neighbors across the street even that would disagree with you about that. That think that muzzle sweeping someone if they're just happen to be handling firearms and you don't like to be muzzle swept or whatever, that's okay and that shouldn't be a problem, and that you're just a coward for not wanting to be around firearms.
I don't think you should
that are being handled irresponsibly.
Yeah, I don't think you should necessarily associate that viewpoint with folks across the street. The guy that owns the house across the street made some bad moves with his muzzle at one of the Porcupine Freedom Festivals, but he doesn't.
Some of those people
live there.
Have also advocated for that same thing, talking about muzzle sweeping.
I've never heard that.
I've talked to some people about it. Yeah,
okay,
and that's there is a reason.
Are you sure they weren't just trolling?
Absolutely sure.
Okay, that would surprise me. I mean, most of those guys are pretty responsible when it comes to gun ownership, so I would be shocked to find that out.
Well, the news story about the guy who died says otherwise.
Guy who died?
Yeah, he walked in front of they were not being responsible, and somebody walked in front of, when there was firing range going on or some target practice, and was shot in the head.
Where was this?
Keene.
Really?
Yeah.
When did this happen?
About a year and a half ago, I think, maybe two.
Are you talking about the guy who was in his home and shot his friend? That story? Because that happened within the last couple of years.
It was like a backyard, I think. There was target practice that was going on. It wasn't just...
No, it was something... that story was like a guy in his home, and they actually knew, the guys across the street knew who the killer was in that particular case. And I think there was some alcohol involved in that particular case as well. There's more coming up here in moments. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. But that actually was a native. It wasn't one of the guys from across the street who was involved in that. They just knew who he was.
Okay.
There's more on the way here. You can take control of the airwaves, and we've been sidetracked. We'll get back into this. It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Joining you in the studio tonight, Etienne.
And Johnson.
And Etienne de la Boetie.
Etienne, tell me about an event you've got coming up. You're doing a lot of traveling around right now. You're in a big old RV parked right outside the LRN.FM studios, and what you got planned?
So I'm the author of the new book, Understanding Our Slavery, where I'm exposing intergenerational organized crimes, control of the government and the media. And my thesis is the government was never designed to protect life, liberty, and property. It was designed from the beginning to kind of rob and enslave, and it's been a partnership of kind of the government and the media gives it its legitimacy. And it's I call it a control perception program. And so I've been trying to expose it, and I was on an East Coast tour with UK natural health guru Clive DeCarl, and we started out in Narcadelphia. Mm-hmm. And at my speech at Anarchadelphia, I told the story of the biggest secret of the Secret Service and the story of the 2013 Veterans March on the Memorials, which has largely been kind of covered up. But in essence, in 2013, the Obama administration locked the veterans out of their own memorials because the country hit the debt ceiling, and if you know, the debt ceiling is one of those made-up things like the Social Security lockbox or the Bill of Rights, and it just ignore it, whatever. And so they were trying to make it seem like government was going out of business, so they turned off the panda cam at the zoo, and they spent money that they didn't have to lock the veterans out of their memorials, and so the veterans come to D.C. and they're just they're mad. And after a rally at the World War II Memorial, they break down the barricades with their bare hands. They carry them and through the streets of Washington, D.C., and they begin just kind of slamming them on the steps of the White House. And not only were they slamming them, but they've got this uniformed Secret Service surrounded the fence. They're yelling at them, "This is our country. Obama's a socialist. How can you work for him? You're scum." They made I saw a female Secret Service agent crying. They were pushing, and I've got some video in the speech. The speech, I've got it up on YouTube. The biggest secret of the Secret Service. But during this protest, I learned what the biggest secret of the Secret Service is, and the biggest secret if you watch the video, you'll understand kind of like what happened. But the biggest secret of the Secret Service is that they know that this is organized crime, and I kind of retell that story. And so after I figured that out, I took my 60-foot sign that says "Government and Media is organized crime," and I took my two sons, who were 9 and 11 at the time, and my 11-year-old looks at me and goes, "Dad, I don't think that they know it's organized crime." And I go, no, they know it's organized crime. He's like, "No, Dad, I don't think they know it's organized crime." I go, no, they know it's organized crime.
Well, they're the mob boss's right-hand man or men, right? Shouldn't they know?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. And so, and he said, "No, Dad, I don't." And I go, "Come here, boy." And so we go over to the first Secret Service, guard shack, and I look at the uniformed Secret Service agent. This is like one of the posts on the outskirts of the White House, and I go, "Excuse me, officer, I'm here with my son with the protest," and I was kind of educational experience for the boy. I've been explaining to him that government's organized crime, and he doesn't seem to think that you guys know that this is organized crime. And so I was kind of hoping that you would elucidate my son as to what's going on. And the guy gets this big smile on his face, and he goes, "Well, I can't say anything," as he's winking at my son. And so I say, do you see? And I was like, "Yeah, Dad, he's winking, but I don't, does that mean that he," and I got that he didn't get it because he was 11, right. And so I'm like, "All right, come on," we go to the next one, and we start rotating around to these guard shacks. And some of them wouldn't talk to us at all. And but some of them were like, "Yeah, we know it's." Well, actually, there was a white hat. The best response was the Washington police. "Yeah, we know it's organized crime. What do you want us to do about it?" And so after 4 or 5 of those, it just dawns on me, because you look, even the ones that wouldn't talk to, wouldn't respond or wouldn't talk to anything, you could just look in their eyes and you could tell that they knew this was organized crime. And so it just dawned like, oh my God, they all know it's organized crime. And so now I kind of change up my tactics, and I begin going from, guard post to police officer. And I say, "Hey, I know," and by the way, there's a full-scale riot going on. So now all the veterans have arrived behind us. They're throwing all of these, barricades in a row. They've got the Secret Service surrounded up against the fences. They've got snipers deployed on the, the roof of the White House, so they make visible. There was another sniper team at the base of the White House leaning on their gun bags, kind of like looking, menacing, trying to menace the crowd. And so now I switch it up and I start going around. I say, "Hey guys, I've been talking to all these different guard posts, and all you guys know that this is organized crime. Today is the day to do something about it. You've got the Army here. You could be the new founding fathers. You've got the place surrounded. You've got all the guns. You're law enforcement. You're expected to do something about it. who do we got to talk to get it on? And you could see they're kind of looking at it. They're like thinking about it. He's like, well, that's my boss over there. He's the incident commander. And I go running over to the, right over the incident commander. And I'm like, sir, I understand and he's like in the middle of, I'm like, I understand that you're incident commander. I go, I've talked to all these different guard posts. They all know that this is organized crime. Why don't we do something about it? Who are the leaders that we've got to kind of like get on board to get this thing done? And he's like, well, that's my boss over there. So I go over, start talking, and I just start rotating around all these different officers. And you would be surprised. Like, I got a kind of a good vibe off some of them. Like, they knew it was organized crime. They wanted to do something. They were literally thinking about it. The Army is like shaking the gates of the White House. Like, we got the military here to do something about it. And they're all pissed. And so it eventually, by the way, this truck thing rolls up. There had another event called the Truckers' Ride to the Constitution, and so all these trucks pull up, and just as I thought we were going to do something, they all pull aside. One final kind of event. So after I realized it, I'm standing in front of one of the gates of the White House with Secret Service like lined up, against the gate. And so I'm standing up in front of the Secret Service where they can absolutely positively hear me in front and talking to the entire crowd. And I'm like, I've talked to all of these Secret Service agents and Park Police agents. They all know that this is organized crime. They just need to know that you know that it's organized crime and you want them to do something. And people in the crowd are going, they don't know anything. They're stupid. They're too dumb to know that it's organized crime. And I'm like, no, they all know that this is organized crime. We can, let's get them on our side. Let's tell them.
But it puts money in their pocket.
To a certain degree, but I honestly think that there are probably some good people that got into it for the right reason.
That's true.
Yeah, they got into it for the right reason. And the question is, do the good people outnumber the bad people? And they've got to see the pain and the destruction and the murders.
Ultimately,
and the
they didn't
bombing.
Take your suggestion, though. They didn't flip.
But
hold on. We're going to continue here in a moment. This is leading to where you're going next, right? Whatever the event is that's coming up.
Divvy is crypto made easy. Anyone can use Divvy to securely and seamlessly spend, earn, store, or exchange digital money, the US dollar, and euros. Divvy is fast. Transactions happen in seconds with fewer fees. While other altcoins are languishing, the Divvy price has risen substantially against BTC. Now's the time to make a switch to Divvy or make your start with cryptocurrency with Divvy. Visit DivvyProject.org. Divvy is crypto made easy. Plus one-click master notes. DivvyProject.org. Again, DivvyProject.org.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We also have the Discord call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. In fact, there are a couple folks on those Discord lines. We're going to get to your calls and thoughts. You can bring up anything, and then we will continue the story about the non-aggression principle, a critique of said principle coming up here. There's two more points, I think.
I think the next one is better than the last one, I will say that.
Okay, we'll get into that. And it's Ian, Johnson, and Etienne here. Etienne, you were telling us about, you took us back to 2013 where you and your sons were in D.C. There was a march by some veterans that was causing a bit of a ruckus. You confronted several agents of the state. It's the Secret Service, and you confronted
Uniformed
them.
Secret Service. Some of them were Park Police, some of them were Washington D.C. Metro Police.
And you confronted them about the the criminality of the government, and basically saying, "Hey, isn't this organized crime? Shouldn't you do something about it?" And while it looked like they might have agreed with you, they didn't do anything about it. But that was kind of where you left the story off.
So once these truckers pull off, the rally kind of dissipated. But it struck me that even though we didn't do it that day, that I learned the biggest secret of the Secret Service, and that is that they all know that this is organized crime. Mm-hmm. And I got some good vibes from some of them, and I got some evil vibes from some of them as well. Sure. But the good vibes seemed to outnumber the evil vibes. Okay. And you could tell that they felt, I felt like they felt bad about, the fact that they knew it was organized crime and couldn't do anything. And so it just struck me, I've got a little bit of a new solution for liberty. Instead of, going to Washington, D.C. and protesting or arguing about like football issues, why don't we go and talk to the Secret Service and the park police and begin, socializing with them that, hey, we know that you guys know this is organized crime. We support you to do something about it. And so I've put together something that I call Citizens Arrest 2020. And so the original Veterans March on the Memorials was October 13th, 2013. This coming up Sunday is the 6th anniversary of the Veterans March on the Memorials.
Okay.
And so I'm going back. I'll be down there from 12 o'clock until 2 o'clock. We're going to meet at the World War II Memorial. I've got a Facebook event.
Facebook?
Fedbook. I've got a Fedbook event, but also I'm just
That's, by the way, one of the other things Liberty.menu does. Liberty.menu, you can put events on there. Anyway,
I'm going to make a Liberty.menu event as well. But the point of it is I'm going to go down there from 12 to 2, and I'm just going to switch up my tactics, and I'm going to begin building the case with the Uniformed Secret Service, the park police. Hey, this is organized crime. I've got my flash drive, the Liberator, which has 8 gigabits of evidence of government criminality. It's got my book on it for free, and begin explaining, hey, this is the organized crime system. And I think if we go back, I'm going to see if I can build some momentum for it. On or about the 13th of every month, just see people, go to DC and begin educating people. And when the 7th anniversary in October 13th, 2020, if we've done our job correctly, then maybe there's enough people and maybe we've built enough support that they just open the doors. We peacefully, walk in, take over, arrest these, whoever the criminals are.
And then we never have another election and the federal government is dissolved?
So, we're going to make some suggestions on peaceful and orderly dissolution of the federal government, which really has to happen. I mean,
bring in Adam Kokesh. I hear he wants to help with that.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Adam Kokesh is the right guy to do it, but if the LP really wanted to win election, they would put somebody up there that had the courage to say, hey, this is an organized crime system. This is it's not legitimate. You can't delegate rights you don't have yourself. You can't be bound by a contract. So we need to begin to roll it back because it's the only way to have. I think that this way that it can possibly end. Because the path that we're on right now goes to economic collapse and boxcars.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with education, which is certainly what you're talking about doing, is educating people, handing out the copies of your book in digital form. I think that's a great idea. I don't think it can hurt to do that stuff. It's just I don't believe there's any hope for D.C. I think that the only way out of this is by getting out of the Union. Secession, for instance, having New Hampshire just completely say, leave it behind.
That's the other thing I'm working on with the pre-state project.
Oh my God, I want to talk about that too. But let's go to the phones here because we got folks that have been waiting patiently to get on the air with us. So let's talk first to Mouth-Breathing Dullard. He's on our Discord line. You're on Free Talk Live.
Etienne, I took a morality and ethics class at State University and had to study everybody from Locke to Mill to Kant to Montesquieu to Rawls and, of course, Dworkin. Can't remember anybody named Etienne. But any self-respecting Logic 101 teacher, professor would tell you that keep repeating organized crime. It doesn't make it so any more than Cantwell is a government agent or whatever you called him. He's controlled opposition. He's just white. He's just alt-white trash who's monetized Stefan Molyneux's theories on his radical agenda show.
So if government isn't organized crime, what is it then?
But I wanted to repeat the point, try to finish the point about any self-respecting Logic 101 professor would tell you that arguments based on anecdote and appeal to authority on a video cam are just dumb, and doesn't make it so any more than our government is an organized crime family or that 9/11 is an inside nut job like you are. And the Libertarian Party will never, ever win in the ballot box while we got clowns like you traveling the country in an RV, making our party look like a bunch of fools.
Your party?
That is an argument, an anecdote. That's a fact. You're an absolute idiot.
All right.
And I should let you know if you're coming to the Southwest.
Thanks for the call tonight.
Have another one.
Well, he was actually on his best behavior. That was actually some of his best behavior. Normally, he just like lashes out and not just insults, but
he usually dials it up. He waits until he knows the person. He feels like he knows the person before he starts to dial up.
I wish he would have answered the question.
He tends to be polite with new people. It's a weird. He's got a weird.
That was polite.
A weird code for him. It was.
It was.
He has this weird. He has a weird personal code, and that's the only thing that you can respect about him, because he can't even seem to follow that code very often because he gets too drunk to follow it.
I wish he would have answered the question I'd asked him about. Well, if it's not organized crime, then what is it? What else could it possibly be? It's not some sort of civic organization.
So crime, or criminals, are people that use violence, extortion, lies on other people.
Threats.
And they seem to be organized, and so I don't understand how that doesn't meet the definition of organized crime.
Not only are they organized crime, they're the most successful organized crime on the planet.
And they're so successful that they can afford a multi-trillion-dollar propaganda and indoctrination system that it takes children when they're young, puts them into the mandatory government school, and teaches them that it's okay to use violence and extortion when the government does it. And this flaw, and then because the children never learn real morality, they never learn real ethics, they become intellectually and morally crippled to not be able to realize what is right in front of their face, and the illegitimacy and the illogic and the immorality of the entire system.
Olivia in Arizona, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hey, Ian, Etienne, and Johnson. You gave me an idea about the whole letting drunk people drive. I think this would be a great idea to have an extra lane for bad drivers where there's speed bumps.
Just stay away from those people.
That's everyone other than me, though.
Hold on, Olivia. We'll bring you back here in just a moment. Stand by. We'll continue with Olivia. The bad driver lanes, interesting idea. The toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. And that's the kind of thing that could come out of a marketplace, right? Like market innovation, new ideas. We don't get that out of government roads, ever. 855-450-3733. You can join us on Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. You may dial the toll-free number here and get in the remaining moments. Enough time for you if you got on the phones right now. 855-450-3733, 855-450-FREE like freedom, or call on our Discord call-in line rooms. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Johnson.
Etienne de la Boetie squared.
Etienne's book is Understanding Our Slavery. His website, understandingourslavery.com. Johnson's website, libertyminded.com. You were just showing Etienne some of your T-shirt designs, one of which you are wearing tonight.
That's super cool T-shirts.
Really good stuff. Great libertarian, liberty-minded, principled shirts. You can get some, really offensive. Definitely gonna get somebody talking.
Get you, beaten by somebody who loves cops.
Others are more subtle and intellectual, so you get the whole range. Yeah. There's some crypto shirts, and the official Free Talk Live gear is available through libertyminded.com. So get on over there, and 'tis the season for Free Talk Live hoodies.
That's right. And I may be dropping the price again here really in the near future. So
don't tease.
Come up. So
don't tease. You will drop. Just go ahead and say you're going to do a holiday sale or something, right? Coming
that's
up.
True. Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, let us know when you're ready to announce that. We'll get the word out. The only problem with teasing about things like that, Johnson, is you make it so people will put off going and buy. If they're expecting a sale to come up, now they're like, well, I won't go today and buy.
I mean, there's a sale going on right now. So
okay. So get on over. At the very least, get over and check out the cool products at libertyminded.com. And yes, you can pay with crypto.
That's
a bunch
right.
of them.
That's right.
Right. Whatever your favorite crypto is.
And if there's any better incentive to go and spend now, right? It's that the crypto could change in value, right?
It's true. It's true. Hey, let's go back to Olivia. She is on the line with us here. You're back on Free Talk Live, calling from Arizona. Go ahead, Olivia.
Hey, actually, Johnson, could I suggest a product? 'Cause I do have a ton of T-shirts. It would be cool? Patches. Like, if I could just throw a patch onto a shirt I already have, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I do. That is a product that I've long wanted. I mean, but specifically, what are you looking for? Free Talk Live patches, or are you looking for just in general?
I think in general, like, you're cool. You have really good slogans. So, like, I just want to stick them on different things, you know, like bags or I don't know.
Can you do one-off patches? Because I know a lot of the products...
I would be going nuts with it. But
yeah, I don't think you can.
It's much harder to do. Yeah, right. I have to make the investment in patches. But patches are one of those things where you can get, you know, some made, and they're not going to take up a bunch of space.
And you don't have different sizes.
My existing problem is that, and this is why I'm willing to unload them for very little money at this point, is I have hoodies coming out of my ears.
That sounds uncomfortable.
It's just hurting my business because I went and I ordered all these hoodies and
over a decade ago.
Yeah, and I had these hoodies and I ordered a bunch because I'm like, oh, I just need 2 of every size. Well, it turns out that having like 2 to 5 of every size of a hoodie, you have, you know, I don't have a large room.
Yeah,
you know, I don't have a storefront, so
or a warehouse.
Yeah, or
it's
a warehouse or anything.
Your condo.
Yeah, it's my condo. I've got a admittedly, I've got a large closet, and I've put shelves in there, and I'm packing these things down as much as I can. But it's like they're still hoodies.
The inventory must go.
Yeah, it must go so that I can make room to actually build a variety business here. So yeah, I'd like to build my business, and I'd like to get rid of these dang hoodies.
Olivia, thank you for the suggestion. Anything else you want to share?
I was going to say you need some of those vacuum bags. You know, stick them in those vacuum bags, suck out the air. But, I was going to ask real quick, I support libertarianism and voluntarism to the hilt, but I did kind of wonder, like, you know how you said arbitration would replace the courts? I think that is a brilliant idea, but how would you make sure that people showed up to arbitration without using force?
Let me throw that in. So I found the biggest flaw in my book is I do a great job of exposing, how organized crime runs the government and the media. But I found that the people are like, oh yeah, but we just have to have government. So I'm in the process of writing a new book called Voluntarism, and I've just been taking a look at the problems of the courts. And with arbitration, really the question is, how do you get people to enforce contracts? And so there's a variety of different ways that you can get people to enforce contracts, from escrow to insurance to reputation. But at the end of the day, people are either going to keep their commitments or they're not going to keep their commitments. And so if they don't keep their commitments, it's any of those solutions that I just provided. But eventually, because people have to do business in the marketplace, people want to, their livelihood depends in many cases on their reputation. And so if it really, they're really making a big gamble on future income by not.
If they don't show up to the hearing or the arbitration hearing, then their reputation gets damaged, and that could harm their ability to get work in the future, or start their own business, or interact with anybody who doesn't want to do business with the disreputable, right?
Right, and that doesn't. By the way, that doesn't mean that you're going to have utopia and people are always going to do it. But at the same extent, in the existing system, just because you have a mandated government court, they still is no, guarantee that they're going to show up or be able to.
If someone wants to be an outlaw, they're going to be an outlaw.
They're going to be an outlaw.
And they're going to take whatever the consequences are of that. And as a business owner or somebody who enters into contracts with people, you'll want to make sure you're not dealing with those people. You want to check their reputation, which means identity will be an important thing in this marketplace that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Those who aren't willing to, connect themselves to some form of history or past should be treated as an unknown. And, that means they won't get the best interest rates. It means they won't get the best apartments to rent. It means, all kinds of consequences.
And caveat emptor, buyer beware.
Yeah.
And so people that have name brand reputations you do business with. And
there's a great book, and thank you, Olivia, for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you, that I read a long time ago called The Market for Liberty, that really goes into some detail, and I suspect you're going to cover some of the same ground in the book you're writing. Morris and Linda Tannehill were the authors of that book. I thought it was so great because for me it really helped me kind of grasp how the question or the answer to the question that Olivia is asking about, well, how would the marketplace handle courts and justice? Because it's easy for small government people to say, well, we only need the government to do courts and justice and, that kind of thing. Well, what if we got the marketplace doing those things? What would that actually mean? And they wrote the book in the 70s, before we had an internet, before we had the ability to move information in an instant. And they really had some, I would say, visionary ability to predict these things that we're talking about here that could come to play. If you haven't checked that one out, Etienne, you really ought to. It's a good one.
Took a mental note.
I was going to say, I don't know how much time we have.
Not much.
The next argument on that.
Oh yes.
This attack on the NAP.
The critique against the non-aggression
principle.
principle.
One that bothers me. I mean, I know we aren't going to be able to get to all of them. Maybe we can cover this one. I don't know. It's
okay.
The next one here is no prohibition of fraud. Libertarians usually say that violence may legitimately be used to prevent either force or fraud, but according to the non-aggression principle, the only legitimate use of force is to prevent or punish the initiatory use of physical violence by others. And fraud is not physical violence. If I tell you that the painting you want to buy is a genuine Renoir and it's not, I have not physically aggressed against you, but if you buy it, you find out it's fake, and then send police or your protective agency over to my house to get your money back, then you are aggressing against me. So it does not. So not only does a prohibition on fraud not follow from the NAP, non-aggression principle, it is not even compatible with it, since the use of force to prohibit fraud itself constitutes the initiation of physical violence. And the reason why I think this one is better is only because this is one that's always bothered me about a lot of libertarianism in general, or libertarians who don't seem to have any problem with fraud. And I don't think of individual instances of fraud. Like, in other words, I have no problem with caveat emptor. What I have problem with is indoctrination.
Meaning what?
From childhood. And I think that
as though that's fraud, you mean? Like lying to a child?
Yeah, I think lying to a child and indoctrinating a child is fraud, and that's how we have the state of society that we have now.
Sure. Yeah, we talked a lot about that.
It's systematic fraud, and I think that it's true of statism, and I think it's true of religion, and I think that they are one and the same. But is it fraud if the person believes the thing? If you have somebody who believes in witchcraft or believes in... Well, that's like just saying, well, then indoctrination is all well and good.
Well, from their perspective, it is. I mean, from our perspective, it's not. From their perspective, they're talking about, in a lot of cases, what they truly believe in. The people who are teaching the state to students don't disbelieve in the state and are lying to the kids about it like they do with Santa Claus, right? Like Santa Claus is straight up fraud, or it's a lie, at least. The children aren't defrauded out of anything beyond their belief system, which could be damaging. But beyond that, my point is the teachers believe this stuff. Right. They're not telling a lie. They're not purposefully misdirecting. They're just passing on their religious beliefs to somebody. And this is an interesting discussion. Unfortunately, we don't have time to get deeper into it. We can continue tomorrow night. Join us online. In the meantime, you can do that at freetalklive.com. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com.
Business owners, you want more customers? Accept cryptocurrencies. There's people all around you just waiting to spend money at your store. If only you would take it. I know, you've been waiting till someone else makes it easy. Well, good news. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com adds Bitcoin to your point of sale, totally free. Use the same equipment you already have, now with Bitcoin. And unlike credit cards, there's no fees. Let the guys at HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com bring new customers to your store. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com.